everyone, it's Allison again with the Everyday Scrapbooker, and today I'm dropping in to share a layout with you that focuses on creating your own pattern, like pattern paper, using your Cricut. If you have Cricut Explorer or the Cricut Explorer Air and Design Space, this would be perfect for you. This is a really nice way to add some texture and subtle patterns to your paper without actually using pattern paper, because we all know that pattern paper is a great way to add exactly that, texture and patterns to our layouts. But sometimes you might not want to use pattern paper, or maybe you don't have the pattern paper that works perfectly with your layout, so why not make your own? I sat down at my Cricut and pulled up the free images and also images that I had purchased. I like to search through my image library before selecting icons and images that I want to use in my layout. So I selected both those options from the drop-down menu in the top right-hand corner of Design Space, like on your, I don't know what you call it, the canvas or the worksheet, and chose one of the items that popped up after I denoted both of those options. I like to choose images that are rectangular in shape, panels, rather than squares, because I find when you edit them and resize them, they will distort if you try and convert a square image to a rectangular image. And the same goes for rectangular images. If you want to try and turn it to a more square image, it just kind of goes funky and gets distorted. So for this particular purpose, I wanted to use an image that was a panel or rectangular in nature so that I could use it as a panel on my layout. I found this really cute lattice panel. I absolutely loved it and I thought it would work great for the layout that I was going to create today. So I sized it to roughly 6.5 inches by 11, just so I could be sure that it would fit my 12 by 12 layout base. And then I trimmed another piece of white cardstock to the same size so that I could mat it underneath the lattice. And then eventually we'll use that on the layout. I also decided to trim down my layout base, which you see I'm watercoloring right now. I'm just using the packaging technique to create my watercoloring. And I'm using blue Reinker and Wisteria, I believe. I trimmed that paper down to 11.5 by 11.5 and then matted it on some green cardstock just so I could pull some more green into the layout. This layout is going to be outdoorsy in nature. My father-in-law, we were camping. We go camping, or try to every summer to go camping with my in-laws. And on this particular trip, when we arrived, they were already there, and he was lounging in the hammock that he brought, which I thought was pretty great. The twins thought it was pretty great too. So this layout is of my father-in-law totally enjoying his vacation, just lounging and taking it easy in his hammock. I also wanted to use flowers in this layout as well. I had this idea in my head to layer the flowers underneath the panel that I'd cut with my Cricut. And so I was running with that. But I also wanted to add watercoloring. And I realized when I was just kind of measuring everything up that not enough of the watercoloring was going to peek through from behind the flowers, or I guess peek out from behind the flowers. So I added some more clear gesso and redid the watercoloring, just widening it, making it wider. There we go, I'm tripping over my words. I did that off camera just to save time. This is a lengthy video, so I hope you stick with me to the end. But if you don't and you don't want to, skip to the end because there are some close-ups of the completed layout that you may want to see. The flowers I stamped on extra pieces of white cardstock. I used Close to My Heart Intense Black ink. It is Spectrum Noir or alcohol marker friendly. And that's what I used to color in the flowers was my Spectrum Noir markers. I have the Spectrum Noir Tri-Blend markers and really enjoy using them. I like being able to shade my images in with just one marker because it's got all three colors in the one. I think it's pretty great. Anyways, Close to My Heart does carry all the Spectrum Noir markers. So if you are in the market for alcohol markers, maybe give these ones a try. I will include the link at the bottom of this video in the description box. So if you want to go check it out at Close to My Heart, you will be able to do that. So here I've got my flowers pretty well positioned where I want them. I had a few extras that I knew beforehand that I wanted to layer over top of the panel and over the picture, but I kind of felt like the picture needed a little bit more color to help it stand out against the white panel. So I layered an extra piece of wisteria cardstock behind that. And once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to throw some adhesive on there and then glue it to the lattice panel. I attached the lattice panel with foam squares just to help lift it up off the flowers and give a little bit of dimension to the layout. Now, at this point, I was trying to figure out how I was going to create the title. I knew I wanted to stamp it, but I didn't want to stamp each individual letter and create like giant alphabet tiles. And I didn't want to use my Cricut to create the title either, mostly because I knew that I didn't have an image that said Grandpa, and that was what I wanted to use in the title. So I decided to stamp it using the overlapping technique, using all the colors that I had already used in the layout. So there's yellow, there's purple, blue. What do I have here? Yellow, purple, blue, and I think pink as well, just a really light pink. So I get that stamped out, and then off camera I will fussy cut it out. You'll see me start it. Oh, look at that, I lied. I did fussy cut it off camera just to save time. And I'm going to add some alphabet tiles, making my own, using my modern typewriter stamp set to get that done. I really like this technique. It's so handy when you don't have alpha tile stickers already in your stash, or if you do, they're not the right color, just make your own. I think it's ingenious. The thing to remember if you're going to create your own stamped letter alpha tiles is to make sure you leave enough space between each stamp, each letter, so that you obviously can cut them out and make little squares out of them so that they become little alpha tiles. If you're wondering what the red mark is on my hand, I walk regularly, and over the winter I go to our leisure center because they have a track and that's where I do my walking. They used to give us like those paper bracelets, those ugly things. And just recently they've stopped doing that and instead stamp our hands when we pay to use the track. So that's what that is, in case you were wondering. It's not a crazy tattoo or anything like that. It's just a red stamp for our leisure center. So now I'm just cutting the letter tiles out, trimming them down, trimming off excess paper so that they're neat little tiles. And I like using them and mixing them up with my titles just to create different fonts and different interest and visual appeal in my layouts. And I also like adding them really, like, not perfectly. I don't know how else to explain it. Just kind of whimsically and not straight and kind of haphazardly, we'll say. I just think it adds to any project that you add them to. Add some total cuteness. Of course, I have to add some sewing thread to my layout as well. So I'm just tucking some underneath the panel that I cut with my Cricut. And I'm also placing it in areas that I know that there's going to be some embellishment clusters. So there'll be one underneath the flower and the word grandpa. And then there's also another one underneath the pink flower that's a little more than halfway down the panel. I think I put some behind the purple flower at the top of the photo as well. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure that's what I do, or I put it down at the bottom of the layout. Whatever I do, we will figure it out together because I'm sure it's coming sooner or later in the video. Right now I'm just playing around with placement for part of the title. I knew that I wanted it to be nestled next to the flowers, but I also don't want it spread out totally across the photo either, so I'm trying to keep them as close together as possible. I'm just going to glue the flower down first so that I have a reference guide for the title and the alphas. Oh, and there goes the sewing thread underneath that flower or embellishment cluster there. And I'm just adding a few more foam squares to the end of the title so it stays the same height as the rest of the title and obviously the panel. I am using my liquid glue to adhere the letters. It's a lot easier than trying to use your tape runner or ATG. It's just less finicky. All I do is put a little dab where the letter is going to go and then plunk the letter on top, press it down, and it's good to go. And like I said, I just put them on really haphazard. I wasn't too concerned about keeping them straight and lined up as long as they aren't spaced out too far, because I don't want to cover too much of the photo. Otherwise, it looks good. I just love the way these little tiles look. It's kind of finicky, I do have to admit, but it's totally worth it when it looks that good on a layout. Am I right? Last but not least, I have to add some journaling. And as per my go-to technique lately, I am stamping my journaling as well. I really wanted to type my journaling out if I had a typewriter, which I don't. It is on my wish list. I would love to have one. So then the next option was to print it using my computer and printer, but I didn't want to deal with the hassle of trimming paper down, putting it in the printer so I could print it out and then cutting it. So I decided to do it this way. And quite honestly, I think it looks better than typed would have been. I'm just going to figure out the placement, trim off a little bit of the excess paper, I think. And with that, my layout is pretty well done. If you stuck with me till this point in the video, give yourself a pat on the back. I know it was a long video, and I hope it wasn't tedious to listen to, but I really do hope that it inspired you and gives you ideas for creating patterns yourself rather than always using pattern papers. There are some close-ups at the end of this video. You are welcome to check those out. And I will also include links to Close to My Heart if there was anything that you would like to check out over there, you are welcome to do that. Here we go. I added the last bit of sewing thread to the bottom of the layout. I decided that one more flower needed to be added down at the bottom. I'm also going to add the date there as well. So off camera, I stamped another flower, colored it, fussy cut it out, and now I'm adding it to the layout. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found some inspiration in the layout that I shared with you and gives you some ideas for trying something new in your crafting. I hope to share another option for creating patterns in your layouts without actually using pattern paper. Watch for that very soon. Thanks for joining me, guys. Bye.